So in this video, we are going to see how we can implement factory actions in ABAP Restful application programming model. So before starting what exactly the factory actions are, let's understand what are the actions with respect to ABAP Restful application programming model. So actions are nothing new, but if we want to understand at a high level, they can be relate to the methods which we normally write in code and then we call them on the click of any button. So for example, if you have a list report application and multiple records are there, you want to update the status of each record, then in ABAP RAP you create actions and behind the scene you call some methods when you click that action button, and the data gets updated without even going into edit mode for that specific record or for the multiple records. So a standard use case for the action could be when you want to update a specific field of any business object or any entity, then you create an action and you write a custom code. It's not a standard update operation or standard create operation, but it will be a custom implementation code which gets triggered when the action is performed on the selected object or selected records from the list report application. If we say technically the actions are also a part of your business logic, and these actions are defined in your behavior definition, and the method which is having all the logic is implemented in the behavior implementation class. So this was the high level intro about what are the actions with respect to ABAP RAP. Now if we talk about different kind of actions, so there could be, we can segregate them in mainly two types. The first one is non-factory actions and the other is the factory actions, which we are going to see in this video. Non-factory actions are basically have the custom logic and that needs to be implemented, which we normally add inside a method. And these are normally used to change the state of the business object instance. So for example, if you want to update a field or if you want to update certain fields of a business object instance, then you can use these non-factory actions. On the other hand, if we talk about the factory actions, so factory actions are basically used to create a business object entity instance. So in factory actions, a new instance is created, while if we talk about non-factory actions, there is a change in the instance or there is a change in the state of the instance. So this is the main difference in between the non-factory actions and the factory actions. There is also a different kinds of factory actions. There are mainly two types of actions or factory actions are available. The first one is the instance bound factory action, which is a default, and another one is a static factory action. If we talk about the instance bound factory action, these kind of factory action we can use if you want to provide a functionality like a copy functionality, and which in result create a new instance based on the copied data. So if you select a record in list view application and you click on a action and you want to copy that record, in that case you need to use instance bound or the default factory action. Now there could be some scenarios where you just do not want to copy the existing record, but you want to create a new record or create a new instance with some default values. So in that case, you use static factory actions. So while using the static factory actions, you need to provide default values for all of the fields of your business object instance, and it creates a new record with all of those default values. Now let's see some of the differences in between the non-factory action and the factory action. How technically, while we write the code, what are the main differences we are going to observe. So if you talk about instance bound factory actions, they are used to copy one or more business object instances, and static factory actions are used to create the instance with default values. This is the syntax how we write if we want to use the instance bound factory actions. So keyword factory is added here, and then the action keyword, and after that the method name. So this is the method name, and factory actions are always have the cardinality of 1. If you want to create the static factory actions for copying or creating a new business object instance with default values, you need to add a static keyword here, and then the factory keyword, then the action keyword, and your method name. This will also have a cardinality 1. Now one difference, not between these two, but in between the non-factory and the factory actions, there is no result parameter available in the factory method or factory action like we have in the normal actions, and whatever the updated record is written from the factory action, there should be something which will collect the updated record, and that also needs to be displayed onto the front end screen. So mapped is a structure which will collect the updated record done through the factory action. But in case of non-factory action, we have the resulting parameter as well, which collects all the updated data. So these were the high level details about the factory actions and type of the factory actions and the normal action in ABAP Restful application programming model. Now let's see how technically we can implement the factory actions in ABAP RAP. In our previous video, we have created this application using ABAP RAP, and along with that we have also implemented the large object functionality in our last video. So we will be using this same application to implement the factory actions as well. The use case scenario which we are going to use here is when we will be adding a new button here, and which will be used to copy the record of student. Whatever record user will select here and click on the copy student button, a new record will be created which would be a copy of the existing record with all of the fields except the key field, which is the student ID. We will also see how you can create a copy of new record as a draft, and how you can create a direct copy of the existing record. For example, if you have a requirement to copy the full record, just the key field should not be copied, or some of the fields should not be copied in those records. That's not a valid business case scenario, but we will see that as well, how you can just directly copy and you do not see the edit screen to update the existing record. The record would be updated directly and will be added to the database table. So these are the two scenarios which we are going to see in this video. So now let's start making some technical changes to achieve this functionality of factory actions. This is our package which we are going to use These are all the objects. Now very first thing which we need to do is we need to go to our root entity, and the behavior definition for this is this is the interface view and this is the projection view. So to add a action, we need to go to the interface view here, and we need to add a new action here, which would be factory action, and we'll give the action name as copy student. And as we already see, the cardinality will always be 1 for this, and there is no result parameters. So these are some of the difference in the normal action and the factory action, along with this keyword as well. This is a new keyword. So now activate this. So our interface view has been activated. Now the second thing which we need to do is we need to implement this method, or we need to add this method. Double click on this, and if you see here, we got a copy student method for modify, and the important thing is keys. So whatever record you are going to select from the front end, all of those keys should be available inside this. If we go little down here, then we will also see a new method which has been created. So let's activate it now. So our behavior implementation class got activated. Now to add a code here, whatever we need to write custom implementation, that should be going inside this method. So let's start putting some code here. Very first thing which we need to do is we need to create a local internal table which will have all of the data that needs to be updated or that needs to be copied. So that will be a type of entity instance, and our root entity is this. So we will be creating a internal table here with data lt underscore student and type table for create, and the type would be this. What error it is saying? Operation create is not activated for entity attachment. Oh, okay. So we have used attachment entity. We need to use the header entity. Basically, we need to copy this name. So copy this and create this. Okay, now it is fine. Now let's start. So very first thing what we are going to do is we need to read data from our student instance. Whatever data you want to copy from front end, you need to read that data first. So for reading that data, so we are reading selected data, we can say, from front end. Now to read that, we have read entities of. So we will be reading entities of this in local mode, and entity name we are going to give is student, and all fields with corresponding whatever key is there. Okay, and the result data would be in students table. Okay, and if there is any failure, that would come to failed. So here we have read whatever we have selected from the front end. Now let's create a loop here. It is not mandatory to add a loop. You can also write read statement, signing field symbol, and our field symbol would be underscore students. Okay, do an and loop here. Now inside this, what we need to do is we need to append all of these values into a internal table. This is what that internal table we have created. So we are just collecting all of the records selected from the front end. This is what we are doing here currently. So for that we will be using normal append statement, append value and hash. So very first thing would be content ID, content ID will have, we need to collect the keys and key of entity percent key, and the key would be from here, whatever key we are selecting, whatever record, the key of the selected record basically, and it will take CID. Okay, now the next thing which we need to append here is draft. So draft is the functionality. It will have a value 00 or 01 basically. So if you want to have the draft created for this new copied value, you need to set some value, and if you want to directly create the new instance for the copied record, you need to set a different value. So here what we are going to do is we will make it a little dynamic here, and we will get, let's copy this, and we will set the value based on the param. So percentage and percent is draft. So this will be a dynamic value here. You can set 00 or 01 as well based on your requirement. And then finally the data, where what fields or what data we want to create or we want to copy. So all of my data would be in this for each row, but I do not want to copy the ID field because ID is my key field. So that's why I am putting this except ID field. If you want to accept or if you do not want to copy multiple fields, you can add all of those fields here at this location. But for now I do not want to copy the key field or primary key field. Apart from that, all of the fields and values should be copied. Okay, so this is done, and now finally update these value to our internal table here. So to this internal table, and we missing anything here? Okay, this should be here. So 2 and LT student signing field symbol, and this would be our LFS underscore new student. Okay, and dot. This is all done. Now what we have done here is we have read the selected record or selected entity, and then we have looped it, and we have collected all of these selected record except the ID field into this internal table. This is what we have done here. Now the next step is to create the new business object instance. Create instance by copy. Okay, now to create the instance by copy, what we are going to use is we will be using modify entities of, let's copy the same name in local mode, and our entity again would be student. Now we need to create the fields, so we will be using create fields, and we need to pass what are all fields we want to create with the record. So for that we need to go to our let's load this. We need to go to our dictionary object and open our header table for the student. Double click on this, and these are all the fields which we want to create or update here. Student, this is a draft table, sorry, we need to open the header tables. These are all the fields which we want to update. So one by one we will be adding all of these fields here in the field section. So fields would be our first name, then last name, then age, the course, then course duration, then the status, gender, and date of birth. So these are all the fields which we want to copy here. And from where we are getting the data? So we are getting the data with this internal table. Copy this. So in this internal table, our copied record would be there, which will be passed to all of these fields. And these fields are going into modify statement for this entity. So with this, and now finally we have seen for factory actions, there is no returning parameter, but we have a parameter mapped which is being updated with the created record. So this is that parameter, and the data would be created with the name mapped underscore create. Let's say you can provide any name here. So this is done, and dot. So this will create a new record, and the newly created record would be available here with the help of this mapped keyword. Now to display this record onto the front end, once it is created, we need to put this created record back to the mapped parameter. So that mapped parameter is this one. This is the response for mapped. Okay, so this mapped, and what is the entity? So the student, and the data would be mapped create and student entity. So whatever record we have created here for the student, we are sending it to front end mapped parameter or mapped structure here. Once this is done, then only the record would be displayed onto the front end screen, the newly created record. So whenever you want to create or display the updated record, you need to update this parameter always. And that's it. So our copy student method is completed. Now let's activate it. Okay, so this got activated. The next thing which we need to do here is we have added the action here, copy student, but we haven't used this in the projection. So the next thing is we need to use this action inside the projection view. So we will be using and using action copy student. So that's it. We have updated our projection view as well. Now let's activate it. So all of the behavior definition and behavior implementation job is done. Now finally what we want to do is we want to add a new button onto the front end application. For that we need to go to our projection view for header, which is this one, where all of the annotations are available. In this case we haven't created a metadata extension for adding all of the annotations, but if you have a metadata extension created, you should add this, whatever button we are going to add, you should add there, not in the projection view, as a best practice. Now to add the action button, we want to add, sorry, not on the selection field, on the line item field. Line item field is an array and we can have multiple objects there. Now let's create a new one, put a comma, and to add the action you need to write a parameter type, which will not be a standard one, but it will be for action, and put a comma, then data action name. So this name, data action name, would be your action name here. So copy student is our action name, put it here. Now the next thing is just the label. I will call it copy student, and that's it. So everything is done now. Our factory action is created, we have implemented as well, and we have activated it as well. Now let's go to our application and do a refresh here. Our expectation is we should see, and we are seeing a new button available saying copy student. Click on go. We have this student already available here. Now we will be copying this student. So select this. Our action or factory action got activated. Click on this. Awesome. So we have got our edit page with all of the field values are already copied from the selected record. Now since we are using the draft functionality as well, So this should already be available inside the draft table. I'm not doing anything else here. I'm clicking on the back button. See, we got a new entry available, which is a draft entry, and everything is same except the ID field, which we have added in the accept clause while modifying it. So this ID is different and this is a newly created ID. Now let's click here, and if you want to make any change, you can make the change. Let's do 1111, course duration 1, age 51, and status is active. Now draft is updated here, and click on create. See, our record is created. Go back, and this is our newly updated record available. Okay, now the next thing which I want to show you is we are getting a draft functionality here, but if you do not want to use the draft functionality and you directly want to just copy the record without making any change, it's like 100% duplicate. Just the key field should be newly generated. So in that case, what we need to do is we will go to our class and we will comment out this line, is draft. So is draft, as I previously mentioned, is draft can have two different values. One is 00 and another value is 01. So if you set the value 00 here, then it will not show you the edit page, but as soon as you click on the create student button or your factory action, a new record will be copied directly. Means that record will be directly go into persistent table, not in the draft table. But in the other case, if you put the value 01 here, then a new instance will be created in the draft format. It will not go directly to the persistent table until and unless you click on the save button. So what we are going to do here is either you can comment out this line or you can put a value 00 here. Okay, I am commenting this line, and let's activate this. It is activated. Now let's see what difference it makes. Click on go, and I'm deleting this record. Now earlier when I click on the copy student button, it was opening a record in the draft mode, basically in the object page, and then there we can click on the save button. But now since we have removed the draft functionality from the factory action, it should create a new record directly here. So I am selecting this and click on copy. See, our record is directly getting created. It is not going into open mode or in the edit mode. In other case, it's not in the draft table. If I go back, see, we got a newly record created here with new ID and everything is exactly same here. So this based on purely on the requirement, how you want to create your newly record or newly created record, either in the draft mode or directly into the persistent table. This is how we can use the factory actions in ABAP Restful application programming model. And that's all for now in this video. If you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.